Time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Waking up on the floor of a bar was a long
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and you have decided to tune into another horrible game review. As usual, before we get into it, let's get into some disclaimers. First and foremost, the word horrible in the title of this video does not necessarily refer to the game itself, but instead the review and the process in which I do the review. I do snap judgment reviews, so I usually get 3 to 5 hours with the game, sometimes 10 max with it. And I'm basically just kind of trying to bring to you guys whether you'll find it fun right off the bat or not. Number 2, I do not give scored reviews for video games. I don't believe in them. I think video games is one of the most subjective forms of art. Therefore, you will get from me an overview of the game, the pros and the cons of this game from my point of view, as all reviews are. And then finally, whether or not I'm going to stick with it outside the purposes of this review specifically. That out of the way, let's get into it. This week, I review West of Dead, which is an interesting game to say the least. How best to describe this? It feels like somebody was playing the side-scrolling, perpetually generated Dead Cells and thought, man, this is good, but I wish it was a top-down shooter. Because that's what West of Dead is. It's literally Dead Cells with a more Western aesthetic instead of fantasy, and it being a top-down shooter instead of a side-scrolling hack and slash. So, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I know that kind of sounded negative, but it's not bad. I mean, Dead Cells is a great proven formula, and there's no reason for it to not branch out and touch other things. So, is West of Dead good? Well, before we get into that, West of Dead basically has you take control of a gunslinger with a flaming skull for a head, voiced by the legendary Ron Perlman. He wakes up in this bar that's basically in purgatory and realizes he has to find someone called the Preacher and kill him. Simple enough. The premise then goes as this. You exit the bar into basically a dungeon, different rooms connecting whatever. The dungeon itself is procedurally generated. As you move through it, you'll take on enemies in each room, as well as find trinkets, upgrades for your weapons. You can have 2 weapons and 2 special items at any one time that have a cooldown. And you'll find those. You'll find traders that you can buy stuff from for iron, which you collect. You also collect sins, which you trade in between the levels for other different unlocks, which we'll get to in a second. The gunfights themselves are interesting. You have to use kind of cover and kind of evasive movement, but there's also this extra mechanic thrown in of these hanging lanterns. Every room is dark and very shadowy, and if the bad guys are in the dark and shadowy stuff, you can't target them and hit them. But if you hit these lanterns, just a quick press of the B button when you're passing them, there's a flare of light, and any enemy caught in it will be stunned for a few seconds, allowing you to really destroy them. As you go through, it's very survival based. You try and get through the map with live through it or whatever, and then in between, you get this kind of like sub level where you meet the bartender again. He refills your health, and then you meet this witch who allows you to spend the sin that you've collected in between to get other stuff, such as unlocking weapons that you can use, unlocking abilities that you can use. You can also unlock the ability to heal every time you go in. So the idea behind it is the same as Dead Cells. It's a loop. You play until you die. You collect as much as you can, making it easier for you the next time around, hopefully getting further on and on and on and on we go. After you go through that, you go into another map that's procedurally generated, and you try and head through there as per se usual. And that's really the game. That's the entire loop of the game. So let's get to the pros and cons. The pros, the shooting is fun. It feels fun. It's relatively accurate. It was hard for me personally to get used to the twin stick part of things. I don't know necessarily that it would be hard for other people. I also like the difference between the guns. Everyone feels different. They have a different reload time, a different wind-up time to fire, which is nice. And as far as reloading goes, you have unlimited ammo, but each gun fires a certain number of times, then has like a cooldown before it can fire again, which is basically your reload. So the shooting felt really fun. I like that, and I actually liked the lantern mechanic. I thought that was a lot of fun. I like the idea of like figuring out how to move through the room to stun and shoot people as best as I possibly can. My next pro, of course, has to be the voicing by Ron Perlman. I mean, he's great. He's great. Even when he, I would like to say he even delivers these lines with like a lackluster, but that feels right for the setting. So I don't even necessarily think he did a poor job. It's just Ron Perlman with his kind of like real low grumble, and he sounds really good in it. And it's nice for that kind of star power to give you some gravitas. It's nice to hear his lines. I'm also impressed because every time I die, he's given a different line, and I've died quite a few times, and I haven't heard the same line twice, which is just kind of cool to me. All right, so let's step over into the cons for a second. Now, right off the bat, I'm not going to say it's a con that this game is basically Dead Cells, but a top-down shooter. I'm not going to say it's a con because that's a good thing. Dead Cells is a great mechanic and a great idea for a game. I have no problems with it being a different kind of genre, so I'm not going to say that that is a downside. Although if you're looking for something completely unique, you're not going to get it here. However, my first con has to be the lighting in this game. Their choices make things very confusing, and while the shooting is fun, it's real easy to lose track of what's going on. Now, I know what you're all saying. It's the way it's supposed to be, and that might be so, but there was a lot of times where the bad guys actually would blend in with the background because of the cell shading, or they would just look like a wall, and I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. I'm okay if I lose the bad guy in the darkness that I'm supposed to lose the bad guy in, but I don't like that I lose the bad guy's details when he's just walking around on the ground. The other thing I'm not keen on is because of the shadowy darkness of it, you kind of miss out on a lot of the art. You kind of get this kind of like brownish gray hues on everything, and it kind of turns into gobbledygook. It's hard sometimes to figure out what you're looking at. I understand they're trying to make a stylistic choice, but I wish they had cleaned that up a little bit as far as the color goes, and just make it a little crisper, in my opinion. But that's really my only con. I'm not going to knock it too much. It was a really big one for me. It made it less fun for me. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe other people will disagree with me, but that comes to whether or not I'm going to stick with it. I think I'll go back to this a couple of times. I don't think I'm going to stick with it for the long run because I don't feel like the follow-through is as clean as a game like Dead Cells. I don't like the fact that I lose the bad guys in the background. I like the lantern mechanic. I don't hate it. I don't like the idea of half the time I can't tell what I'm looking at. I know it's a bad guy. I know that it's different from the background, but I can't even tell like what it looks like in comparison to other things. It's just kind of like I know that's a bad guy because that's what I can aim at. No, I don't like that. That makes me unhappy. I would have liked a little bit more definition in the characters. Maybe they shouldn't have cell shaded it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the correction would have been, but it just feels a little browned out, I guess, would be the best way to say it. And for that, I'm probably not going to play it that much after this. Doesn't mean it's a bad game, just means it's probably not for me. So with that, that brings us to the end of another horrible review. I hope you guys found this informative and entertaining. And if you did, check us out on Facebook at OldManGamingDH. You can also check us out on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. The link is in the description below. You can influence this and every one of our shows. I'll even take requests for the reviews if it's not a busy week. So yeah, and as usual, as long as you guys keep watching and listening, we will keep making these. We'll see you guys next time.